Hour number 2 of Between the Lines on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We're live at Midwest Classic today, the Nicholas Golf Club at Lionsgate. We're in the shade. We got it made in the shade, man. That's what we've got, made in the shade. We're at the golf course talking about sports. What could be better than that? Pretty good day. Pretty good day to be on the radio. Got some nice folks around us here, friendly people. They'd love to have you come out and check out the tournament this week. If you love professional golf, these guys are good, as they say. Danny's back in studio. I think Scott and Kirk are there, or a combination of Scott and Kirk or somewhere. I'm not real sure. I didn't pay much attention during the break. My mind wanders at the golf course, but it's time to talk racing. What's up, boys?
Well,
hey, Kevin.
We're together for probably the only time this summer in the McCarthy Auto Group studios here in Independence. Yeah, yep. So that's a rare thing indeed.
That's a good thing. And before we go forward, I just have to ask you guys a question, because I had an emailer who emailed me probably a month ago, and he keeps and it just hasn't been able to. I haven't been able to work in the question. He desperately wants the answer to this, and it won't take very much time at all.
Yep.
He wants to know why at the All-Star race they call it winner take all when the second place guy gets $240,000 and they pay out other places too.
Good question. I think that's just the spin they put on it, just to kind of play it up, hype it up. But, yeah.
So you've noticed that as well?
No, I've heard this question. Yeah, it's not the first time.
Right, but you've noticed watching the All-Star race that it really isn't winner-take-all.
Correct, yeah.
But it really doesn't matter, because nobody really cares about anybody but the winner in that race anyway.
I really think it's because there's no points involved, so they spin it that way. It's like throw caution to the wind. You won't be penalized and lose points for being aggressive and going for it. I think that's kind of the theme behind everything.
Winner take all the glory, maybe?
Maybe, takes all the risk. Maybe takes all the risk. I don't know.
I've always thought it would be cool in either racing or golf. Either one is perfect for this. Mm-hmm. If you got, what's the big accounting firm, KPMG or Deloitte & Touche or one of these things,
right.
That, like the guy who's in charge of the Oscars, right? We know who's won, but nobody else knows.
Price Waterhouse,
one of these firms. And they actually got personal funds of $1 million each from, let's say, 10 NASCAR drivers, okay? Mm-hmm. Or I've always thought it would really be cool is if golf did this. 10 golfers, 12 golfers, whatever. They all had to throw $1 million in, and we're going to play 36 holes or run 300 miles on a track or whatever it may be.
Winner take all.
Winner take all.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Of your own money. You'd have to do it in Nevada, but how cool would that be?
How much pressure would that be on a race car driver on the last lap, running second, knowing that it's $0 or $12 million, no points?
Right. And furthermore, if we either catch you cheating or if we have an official in the race, if we deem that you did something unsportsmanlike to affect the outcome of the race, if you took somebody out and we did, you got to put up another $1 million for doing that.
Well, you still come out on the plus, though. So what's another $1 million, right?
Well,
you
if
lose
you did that to win, I guess you would.
Yeah, if you have to crash somebody to win and it costs you another $1 million.
Right, you pay $1 million, but you don't win.
You don't win either.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to have something in place like that, because NASCAR drivers, they would just take each other out, wouldn't they?
But see, I think that you need to leave that in there. I think that's the element of motorsports that people thrive on. The beating and banging, the rivalries, the hurt feelings from somebody taking you out. I mean, that's all a part of the emotion of motorsports, and I don't think you want to try to take that out of the equation.
Right, but isn't there a difference? You guys have talked about this through the years. Isn't there a difference between racing hard and, we got tangled up, whatever.
Racing dirty.
Because I've seen this before. You can tell a guy's a little bit behind, and he hits you in the bumper, and you start to spin out a little bit. That's easy to spot, right? That's not fair.
No, more times than not, you can tell when a guy intentionally takes somebody out. Yep.
Well, you ought to be an expert at that. You know just exactly how to race like that. Sure.
But it backfires on you sometimes. When you try to take somebody out, I know it cost me a championship at Lakeside Speedway, leading the points. Took a guy out. He was blocking me. He was second in points. He'd been blocking me all year, and I kept telling him, if you keep it up, I'm gonna take you out. When I did, I took myself out. It cost me a $300 fine, at $2,500 worth of damage to my car, a 3-week suspension. I lost the championship. So, sometimes when you try to retaliate against somebody, it doesn't work out in the best for you.
Sounds like Nate in his soccer game where he tore up his Achilles or his ankle, taking out a guy in retaliation. Same thing. in a soccer game, an indoor soccer game.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it can backfire
like
on you.
Fool afterwards.
You know, we watched it.
And probably that is the year that I regret the most because I was on fire that year, won a lot of races at the start of the year, and not winning a championship over the course of my driving career. I've run everywhere in points, but never won a championship. To this day, I regret doing that on the racetrack. It's probably my biggest regret in motorsports.
Well, you know, we watched a race on Wednesday night with that kind of mentality, and it was the most entertaining NASCAR race of the whole year. It was the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series on the dirt at Eldora Speedway Wednesday night. Kyle Larson, who's not running for points, he's in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, so he's there running for Rookie of the Year, and a one-off race where he comes in and races his truck. He's not thinking about second or anything else but winning the race. And the show that he put on Wednesday night and the slide jobs that he did on the eventual winner, Darrell Wallace Jr., was classic stuff. He bounced his truck off the wall numerous times. He did all he could to try to win that race, and he wasn't thinking about anything else other than winning, and what a show that was.
Yeah. That explains why that was so interesting, and I was just going to ask you guys, it seems like this has been either a very calm, slow, or a little more boring year for the big boys. I don't know what it is. It's just not seasons. You guys can maybe give me some insight as to why I feel that way, because I can't put my finger on it, because they're winning means more now than it ever has. They're changing the rules to where winning is more important out there. But maybe they ought to do away with all this stuff altogether. Any type of point system, any type of rankings. If everybody's out there trying to win, literally make better racing in every race?
I've got to respectfully disagree with you, Kevin. I think
I'm not making the comment. I'm asking the question. Would that make it better?
I don't think it can be any better than it is right now, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, he just said a truck race where a guy wasn't worried about points or how he finished, created the most exciting race he's seen all year.
Because he was a non-regular on the truck series. We're talking about Kyle Larson, who runs full-time in the Cup Series.
Right,
the reason
correct.
he threw caution to the wind, but still, no. You've got to have some kind of point system, don't you? You have to have something to chase, carrot to dangle in front of you to go for.
I'll give you a system. The only way you get to race next year is if you win. Yeah. Otherwise, you got to go down to the nationwide tour.
No, then you'd have 15, 16 cars racing.
There, you got to bring some up from there. Everybody who won there gets to move up.
I don't like any of that.
This all goes back to what this is supposed to be. Isn't really this supposed to be? And when winning really matters now, you've got to win to get into the chase. I mean, isn't that what this was supposed to be? I think what's going on.
Kirk, don't act like that.
No,
really?
I really think what's going on right now is that just that there's not enough passing going on out on the racetrack during the race.
You guys have to be kidding me. This is by far the best Sprint Cup season that we've had in 10 years.
How come we don't see enough passing for the lead during these races?
I can't break down the stats. I can't tell you what the percentage is, but I bet you it's better than the last 2 years passes for the lead. Track records are broke. We have, 12, 13 different winners. I can't think off the top of my head. What more could anybody ask for a season? There's parity amongst the cars. Different drivers are contending for championships. It's not just Jimmy Johnson. I mean, there's so many positive things going on in Sprint Cup right now. For anybody to think that this isn't the best season that we've seen since the new style of car, it's just mind-boggling to me.
The attendance and TV ratings don't reflect that. Why do the attendance and TV ratings not reflect that?
I can't answer that, but you need to talk to somebody that's involved with the network. But what I can tell you, that the performance on the racetrack, the competition between the cars and the drivers and the parity and everything, and the guys going for wins, better this year than the last 10 years.
Well, I think early in the season we saw some good racing. The Kansas Speedway race is the last good mile-and-a-half race that we've seen this year. That was in May. And, we just haven't seen enough passing out on the racetrack.
Well,
that Kentucky
race
race was just an absolute boring race.
But I would bet you that every track that Sprint Cup has ran at this year, the amount of passes for the lead or exchange positions is higher this year than it was the last 5 years. And I wouldn't be surprised to say the last 10 years. So is it enough?
Maybe
We would love to see more. Obviously, we always want to see more passing for the lead. But don't we? The bottom line is, just like any sport, we want to be entertained. And I'm entertained this year. I love everything about Sprint Cup this year.
Okay, maybe this is – I don't want you guys to take this wrong. You guys are very dear friends of mine. I'm not trying to be mean, okay, or rude with the question, but I'm just curious. Are you seriously concerned about the future of the sport, or do you have any thoughts that we have now been through the golden era maybe in the last 15, 20 years, and it's going backwards now because ESPN's leaving? We've talked about the TV contracts, the ratings, the attendance. How concerned are you that, boy, this was a great run the last 15, 20 years, but NASCAR is not going to be what it once was?
And I hate to answer a question with a question, but isn't all sport in the same boat right now? All of sports, isn't it?
No.
Isn't it down? I mean, other than the NFL and maybe soccer, because there's a little bump now, obviously, because of the excitement and everything with the World Cup. But in baseball and sports and basketball, how about golf?
Baseball attendance is setting records. So
let me ask, what about golf?
That last year, they didn't do that last year, Danny. They've had some good years, but
what about golf?
Here's the difference. Baseball can be down, but it's not coming from a place where NASCAR 15, 20 years ago still was kind of a niche. It was really strong in the Southeast, but not as broad nationally. Then it expanded, and people started watching everywhere, and the ratings went through the roof. And all these great things happened, and nobody can deny that. But if it goes backwards, it's going backwards toward more niche status. Baseball has been so mainstream for so long. I mean, you guys will admit there's more baseball fans than NASCAR fans, right?
Yes.
So if they lose 2, 3, 4% of their audience in a given year, plus that, it's still massive. NASCAR sees a bunch of drops, has empty seats at tracks. Does it maybe need to go back to where it is still as popular as it once was? Because I'm guessing, I don't know this. I'm guessing it's as popular today as it's ever been in the southeastern part of this country. I think my theory is where it's falling off is places where they expanded and a generation of people came in and they watched and they loved it, but the drivers haven't changed over that much. You still got Jeff Gordon, you still got Jimmy Johnson, you still got Tony Stewart. It's been the same guys for 10, 15 years, and when you see those same guys over and over, it's like, I know this. I'm going to see Tom Petty this summer. I'm excited. He hasn't toured in 3 or 4 years. Well, if Tom Petty came here every year, eventually I wouldn't go. You know?
Well, I think NASCAR has been so saturated for so many years with running its season in mid-February all the way through November that we've gotten to the point to where people are just maybe some people might be a little burned out on the sport for a change. And I think that another thing is that NASCAR has changed their point system and made all sorts of different changes to the sport in order to try to make it better. But at the same time, they may have lost some of the identity that they once had, especially some of the longtime fans of the sport.
Let me add to that. I do think that we're going through a transition right now of drivers from the old school, the guys that have been around, including Jeff Gordon, the guys that have been here for 20 years. We're making that transition right now, but I think we're in a great place when you look at the drivers and the young people that are coming up to replace those drivers, the Kyle Larsons, young drivers, Bubba Wallace.
Chase Elliott.
Bubba Wallace. There's a lot of young drivers that I think are going to create more interest amongst young people over time. And I just think we're going through a transition here. Is it as popular as it was, say, in 1990? No, because really that's what we're talking about. That growth spurt happened in the late 80s, early 90s. That's when these tracks started putting in 100,000 seats. So how long can you stay at that level? I mean, just think about it. Over 25 years ago that the popularity started to grow with NASCAR.
I agree with that.
And I think we're going to be okay. I just think the business model of NASCAR is changing, and they're in that transition right now. And over a period of another couple of years, I think we're going to be okay. Is it going to be back to where in the 80s or 90s? Never again. Never.
They're racing in Indy this week. It's the 21st year they've done this. Okay, so we can trace it back. That's when it was all exploding, really, really exploding. Bold moves. Hey, we're going to go race at the Brickyard, man. And I don't know what the attendance is like there this week compared to what it was 20 years ago or 10 years ago.
It'll be way down.
I guess we'll see. It'll be way down.
Way down.
Okay.
And
So
but let's be fair. That's a reflection of the race itself now, because this race is typically not one of the better races of the year.
All right.
For the fan.
So at what point does somebody have to step up and say, maybe a little contraction is what we need? Let's pick the places where it's not as interesting or not doing as well. Let's shorten the season a little bit. There's nothing magical about the number of races that we have, and see, because it's like Sporting Kansas City. They said they were making this announcement for this soccer, which is really cool, a $75 million facility. We found out a couple days earlier, hey, they're going to have an announcement, whatever, with the governor. And I'm sitting there thinking, I wonder what this is. And I said, I must have told 10 people. I hope they're not announcing that they're adding 10,000 more seats to Sporting Park. Because if they put 10,000 more seats in Sporting Park, they're going to build empty seats. And what they've got right now is special, and it's magical, and probably 10 or 15 years from now, we will look back and say, wow, remember that in 2012, 13, 14 through 16, how awesome that was? This is the golden age. This is great. Will it get bigger? Will they ever be in a 50,000-seat stadium? That's pretty hard to project. And if they expanded their stadium right now, I think they'd be building empty seats. That's my personal opinion. So I wonder if maybe the answer for NASCAR isn't pulling back a little bit.
And that's, I would agree, that should be something they're going to take a look at maybe down the road, but that's going to be quite a ways down the road in light of the fact that they just signed a new television deal with both NBC and Fox for an extended period of time.
$8 billion, by the way, $8.2 billion.
Right. Contraction of the schedule is just not going to happen anytime soon.
Popularity can't be too bad if two networks are willing to throw in $8.2 billion. You know what I'm saying? And let me ask you this, Kevin, let's look at baseball. Was there ever a period, and you could tell me, I don't follow these trends, I don't know, but was there ever a time when baseball's numbers were really down, but now they're back up to where everybody is satisfied with the numbers? And when was that?
That's when NASCAR was taken off. In '94, a lot of people left baseball.
Right. And so it's back.
But you're right about one thing. Here's what all these sports have in common. They're all cashing in off television dollars that nobody could have projected even 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago, because here's what's happened. Technology's given us all DVRs. Nobody's watching anything on television live. People are streaming Netflix. They're doing all these different things. The viewing habits are completely unpredictable. There's 1,000 cable channels. There is two things on television that people will watch live. Two things. They will watch the news, and they will watch live sports.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Everybody else is taping and recording everything else and playing it back. So, yeah, when these networks come to NASCAR, they want live programming because people don't turn away from it.
And let me just throw one thing in here and add to the live programming. Wednesday night is an example. They ran that truck race at Eldora, Tony Stewart's dirt track.
It was on Fox Sports 1, by the way.
Fox Sports 1. And I'm telling you, there was such a buzz for the 2 weeks leading up to that event. And I know that everybody that I know that's in motorsports was watching that event, NASCAR fans, dirt fans. And let me tell you something about that event that NASCAR needs to take a good, hard look at. They've got to look at this schedule and take big swings in this schedule and start booking midweek shows. Trim off the start of the year, make it a little bit later in the season, a little bit sooner, take some midweek races, put them in the center. These teams could do it. I know it's going to be difficult. It'd be hard for them to do. Finances, everything that comes with it. But for the sport, I think it would be better if they could do some of these midweek shows, and they could still keep their 36 dates if they did so.
All right. Sounds great, boys. Always great to chat with you. What's coming up on the show tomorrow?
We're going to have Trent Owens, who is the winning crew chief for Eric Almirola in the Richard Petty Motorsports car that won down at Daytona here a couple of weeks ago. He's going to be on the show, and, of course, we're going to preview the Brickyard 400. By the way, you can hear it live on Sports Radio 810 beginning at 12 noon on Sunday. The NASCAR Nationwide Series race will be on 1510 tomorrow at 3:30. So we'll talk a lot about what's going on at Indy.
Also, Joe Kosiski, the promoter of I-80 Speedway up in Greenwood, Nebraska, where we have a lot of listeners going to tune in hour number 2.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, boys. Really appreciate it. Always great to chat with you.
All right, Kevin, Danny. See you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Traylor, Kirk, Elliott. They're the RacinBoys. The website is RacinBoys.com. It's the fastest website in motorsports. They join us every Friday to talk about racing. We certainly appreciate that.